Very good morning to all of you. This subject which we are dealing today, it's of very great importance because any society where there is democracy, if we don't include everybody in what we call as in the activity of taking decisions, where inclusion of all communities, inclusion of all kinds of people who are there in the society becomes very, very important. Therefore, what we are going to talk today is, how, meticulously communities have kept major population of this big societal group as a group which is generally recognized as marginalized. They have been marginalized to such an extent that even till today in countries like India or in Philippines or in Southeast Asia, their existence is shown through representation in politics less than 20%. When we take up our own parliament or take up our state legislatures, we have only representation of 13 to 20% or less than that, which shows very clearly that this particular sector is neglected. Therefore, I will be talking today about the political representation of women and LGBTQIA+ and their representation and what is the amount of impact which is going to create on society. Okay, I'll be now going to the next slide. We all know that from the beginning of the century, there has been a lot that people are trying to do, the institutions are trying to do to bring human rights to women and people like lesbians. And what is the definition of lesbian? Lesbian is woman in relationship with woman. And we also have to talk about gay, man in relationship with man, bisexual, a person in relationship with a man or a woman, transgender, a woman who was assigned male at birth, or a man who was assigned female at birth. Here, an umbrella term used to describe gender, sexual romantic orientations or identities that fall outside the societal norms. And intersex, an umbrella term to describe a wide range of natural body variations that do not fit, neatly into conventional definitions of male or female. Asexual, broad spectrum of sexual orientations generally characterized by varying degree of sexual attraction or a desire for partner sexuality. Now, if we ask, do we have such expressions in Indian mythology or do we have it in the history of India? Do we have such characteristics? Yes, I think all of you know that recently there was a very big religious congregation at Prayagraj. Do you know about it? There was a religious congregation at Prayagraj. What is it? Mahakumbha. Yes. In the Mahakumbh, there was representation from Kinnara and Kimpurusha. Do you know about it? The people who participated, most of them, they are the devotees of Shiva. They call themselves as the disciples of Shiva. And among them, there were a huge big, they are all basically Naga sadhus. There was a huge big crowd of Kinnara and Kimpurusha who participated in that Prayagraj Mela. Have you observed it? Women who were, a part of that Prayagraj, Sammelan, Kumbh Mela, they were recognized as Kinnara and Kimpurusha. Have you seen those things? It happened recently. They were all there in the Kumbh Mela with the Naga sadhus. Large number of Naga sadhus, they participated in it. Did you see it? Did you see it? No. You saw a large number of Naga sadhus. Why I am talking about it is this concept of what we are talking today of, the lesbians, of the gay, of what we call, these are also represented in historical background. They were all recognized in our history. When we study, our Indian philosophy, the mythology, we come to know about this Kinnara and Kimpurusha. Okay, they are, they were not given much importance among the mainstream. They were like the marginalized people. I'm talking about them only. I just want to tell, when we see our historical background also, we see the representation of these people was not shown in the mainstream politics or in the marginal sector. That is the point I'm trying to talk. That's why I went to tell you about it. Now, there were many women, very richly dressed, who participated in the Kumbh Mela. I don't know whether you saw it or not. They were all people who belonged to what we call today as LGBTQIA plus community. Understood? Okay. Yes? Yes, we will go to the next one. Now we need to understand that how is it that we are going to help them? What is it that we have to do? We need to make all of them come together. We need to include all of them come together. If we don't include all of them come together, it becomes difficult for us to give justice to them. Therefore, inclusiveness and empowerment of women and this particular community, LGBT, are essential not only for human existence, but also for flourishing the democracy in a country. Otherwise, we cannot have democracy at all. It is not possible to have democracy. Democracy should be, it has to be recognized as a condition where all people are represented in governing or in administering that particular land. Therefore, they are underprivileged, underrepresented in the political system, which are considered to be the playgrounds of men only, means the politics in general. And despite having nearly half of the population of the earth, they include women and these communities, which are neglected. And by neglecting them, we are neglecting democracy. We cannot have democracy. Now, we will go to the next important point. The next important point is, the next important point is, there is still a lot to do to improve the situation of women and these people, and even not just in countries like India, even in countries like America, in countries like England, where we need to work on the workplace, workplace agreement. Therefore, the International Labour Office has given a lot of privileges to include them in the mainstream. Some actions to increase gender inclusion in organizations actually conceal inequality against women, against many problems faced by LGBT, and also originate within framework that anti-discrimination policy. The reinforcement of this has to take place, and I have also given some references to it. The gender equality, gender management, gender mainstreaming approaches overlook most problems faced by people from LGBT. Why this is happening is, this problem is not recognized as the mainstream problem because they are in minority. They are a microscopic minority. Therefore, their problems are not taken into account. And the best way or the greatest way to solve this problem is include them in politics, include them in decision-making process. Political representation is not just a matter of women's rights or rights of LGBT, but equity, humanity, and democracy can become successful only we give preference to them. People's interests and priorities are often shaped by their respective social, economic, and ethnic differences. Women and LGBT are not just a minority, but half of the population of valuable voters of society who deserve as many rights as men, though they are given representation. I have seen in many villages, in panchayats, women, they do take part, they also have an important role to play. But what happens is, though they are the members of the panchayat, it is the men, it is the husband, it is the brother who takes charge of all her activities and who commands everything, and she will be a shadow of the man. Therefore, her representation, her voice is not heard. Therefore, her voice or the voice of the minority or the voice of LGBT has to be given preference. People's interests and priorities are often shaped by their respective social, economic and ethnic difference. Women and LGBT are not just a minority, but they are not given any kind of voice in decision-making power. Several movements like feminism itself try to make understand equality of women for women in India, and women also understand the relevance of power and politics. They have now realized how politics is the only way. It means if you are in politics, it is possible for you to represent these groups and also tell what is their need or what is their aim in focusing their interests in that particular stage. Therefore, politics is realm dominated by men because historically it has always been male dominated or male governed institutions, not just in India, not just in countries which are where the per capita income is low. Even in countries like US, even in countries like England, this problem exists. Okay. And now we need to understand that though women are the creators of the civilization, women are not given any representation. Politics is one of the strong pillars in the foundation and functioning of the civilization. And women being the creators of that civilization, they are kept out of the functioning of this particular governing bodies. And as per the report of the Election Commission of India, women represent 10.5% of the total members of parliament, and that is just I think only 722 members or so total number participated, and in that only 9.2% are women, which shows very clearly that women and LGBT are not given any kind of importance even in the election process. Okay, and now what is the rationale that we have to do? The rationale in citizens to encourage women in politics is the long pending women's reservation bill. It's a testament that politicians in India care about their seats. They want themselves to be there in the main stage. They only care about their career in politics, their seats as MPs, as MLAs, and they do not give importance for either upliftment of women or they don't give any opportunity for the representation of LGBT. Women's participation in politics has been distressed for ages. Education can dismantle the entrenched patriarchal mechanism in society, which can enrich some rationale in citizens to encourage women in politics. Again, when we encourage women in politics, now many times, most of the times, it is not the women. There are women who take very important role, like Trinamool Congress leaders. It is in the parliament. Trinamool Congress has got major representation of MLAs. They are from Calcutta. MPs, they are from Calcutta. And in places like Chhattisgarh has highest representation of women, but even that highest number is not more than 20%. Therefore, women should be given encouragement in politics, and politics will give them an option to do a lot of work. And then we need to understand integration and application of womanist approaches and the gender subtext. And the gender subtext serves as to understand the role that organizational factors play a very important role. See, any organization or anywhere where there is no conducive working atmosphere for women or for these people, then it is not possible to bring or to give any kind of justice for this particular minority group. Gender as a variable serve to underscore how the hegemonic definition of gender excludes the other. Means when we say gender, we talk at least women representation is happening until 20%. About the representation of LGBT, absolutely nothing. It is the microscopic minority in many countries. They have not recognized them. Therefore, the feminist standpoint is applied particularly in this framework, and women and LGBT are recognized in their heterogeneity and still brought together to search their synergies to counteract sexism as a common source of institutional approach. What I want to tell you is, even in countries like England or in countries, where there is, representation of women in workplace more than 50%, even there the laws are not very clear for giving them their right to represent, their right to ask for their basic needs. There is absolutely no infrastructure provided for them to come and have their representation. Finally, the feminist pro-structuralist, that is what we call after 1947, the post debates, they also approach enables conceiving gender as deconstructed and to apply the subtext analysis to the organizational discourse. Therefore, whenever we talk about post-colonial debates and whenever we talk about these particular groups not represented properly in the mainstream, we have to understand, unless and until representation of all these things happen, we cannot call ourselves as strong democracies or proper democracies. Now, I need to talk about the constitutional rights guaranteed to them. Democracy at its roots level ensures that every single citizen, he should be given equality, justice. Despite this democratic system, constitutional rights guaranteed to every citizen, its spirit has not been realized. If we realize, there will be opportunity for them to have their representation. And it takes many years to create a social time, but little by little we can make a change, and the change should happen within the society, particularly it should begin from home. And there are different dimensions like economic participation, educational levels, employment opportunities, political participation, survival probabilities through which we can assess the presence or the absence of gender inequality among women and LGBT. Women's empowerment in politics requires a multidimensional approach, and we should give an opportunity so that more representation of women can be there, and effort should be made on the execution and implementation of policies like preventing coercion, misrepresentation, assault on women, kidnapping during elections. And I think in the last elections, 3 people were kidnapped, women, because they were now participating in the mainstream election. But when we are talking of such things, we need to understand that we need to be more democratic in helping them. In several nations, the number of leaders in top leadership positions in government is still comparatively very, very less. From the source of Election Commission of India, Government of India, the average representation gap between men and women candidates in Lok Sabha is about 85.8%. If current trend continues, it will take 50 years to reach 33%. They are saying that we are going to give 33% representation to reach 33%, another 50 years, 5 decades. And these minimal number of women demand disciplinary measures to guarantee more female representation. If representation of women is like this, then we can understand the representation of LGBT. Okay, and political parties are the organization in which there is so much of charge of political mobilization, recruiting, and it must make room. Means there is so much of lobbying going on, men politics going on so strongly that it must make room for women to increase gender engagement in politics. With the aid of quotas and reservations, women's participation in local municipalities has steadily, the number has little increased now. Okay, and it is important to increase. And we need to see the PR approach. It's very, very important. The minority not given importance, particularly in underdeveloped countries. The origins of the queer movement can be traced to the late 80s when lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender took distance from LGBT community as a sign of disconformity with depoliticization of its agenda. However, the queer label was later incorporated in the broader movement. Okay? Okay, in terms of queer theory, the most recognized scholar is Judith Butler, whose work Gender Trouble was revolutionary because it made visible the oppressive character of the categories used to signify gender, and it insisted that in its performative nature, therefore it is important that we need to look into that group and recognize them as people who are also included in democracy. Look at the humanity in that perspective. And even after persistent issue of political inequality, specifically focusing on the historical perception of women as primary caregivers, despite legislative efforts aimed at women's empowerment, they continue to face exclusion from active participation in politics. They will be there only for namesake. It is always the strong men of the women, the men among the group, men of that particular community, men of that particular region who play all important roles, and women will be there just for namesake. Many times. She may be an MLA, but who will be the leading person? The leading person, they are the men of that particular community, of that particular region. Therefore, attaining the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 necessitates ensuring equal access for women to political power, for leadership positions particularly, where they are in most important decision-making power. Okay, that is extremely less. If at all they are there, they are always pulled down. All men in the group work together to pull, many times even women in the group work together to pull them down. Therefore, it is important now to understand goals by 2030 necessitate ensuring equal access for women to political power and leadership positions. Nevertheless, current data reveals a global underrepresentation of women. If we see how much of a land is in the hands of women, when we take the whole world, universe into consideration, how much of the land is in the hands of women? Not even 7% of the land is in the hands of the women. Then we can understand what kind of power men are enjoying, and what is the role of women. To bridge these disparities, it is imperative for the government to prioritize education, give opportunities for women to get educated, raise denying awareness to encourage increased population of women. And I went through these books, and I would be happy to tell that please go through these books. Politics of Female Political Representation by Dr. Vibhuti Patel. The Representation of Women in Indian Politics by Ritu Diwan. Electoral Gender Gap in India, Exploring the Political Participation of Women by Dr. Mona Joshi. And Women's Political Representation in India by Ranjana Kumari. And also the other things which I wanted to talk about, the global scenario which I have mentioned, while talking about them in the PPT. Therefore, you can collect it from your representatives. Thank you so much. I was called many times by Government of Karnataka, Samaja Kalyana Ilake, to talk about their problems, particularly the problems of women who are there in the tribal regions, Whenever they were, whenever we were giving them information, data about these people who are basically people who are living in forests, okay, they were telling us few things which are of very great importance. Every time we tell them that these are people who are living in forests, and the tribal women, and this is their case study, they say that every time we go for census or data collection, their information differs. The data that you give today, and if there is another group going, after some 1 month or 2 months, the data differs. Therefore, they say that every government has its own data. Okay? Therefore, it is very difficult to take any kind of decision about the tribal women. And you can now understand, it is the same case with any of these, what we call as minor groups, or these marginalized groups, about whom if we try to tell them, or if we try to give more information about them, so that we can suggest some better modes for them. Every time there will be lot of misinterpretations. Therefore, unless and until there is what we call as social consciousness, and there is this social demand from the public that everybody should be given representation in democracy, this problem cannot be cleared. And it is so even in societies of developed countries. Thank you so much.
Do you have any questions?
My first question is, what do you think is the difference between sexual orientation and gender? And
1 minute. Sexual orientation and
gender.
Gender.
Yeah, and my second question is, when we talk about
LGBTQIA,
right? Why do you think it is necessary for their inclusion, as it is something that has to do with their sexual orientation, and that's something that has to be private, and why does it have to be inclusive of in politics?
They are also human beings like you and me.
But that's sexual orientation of theirs.
1 minute. They are also human beings like you and me, and they are not recognized at all. You don't recognize them as human beings. That is the most important problem. It is not their problem that they are born like that. It has happened. It is not. No, I understand that you say that it has to be represented as a gender. And why do you take them this way? They are also human beings. Their representation is also necessary for democracy. Anybody who is born, Constitution says that for everybody there should be equal representation. Even you will be very much. I was embarrassed to know that when we were students studying in college, when we were students studying in school, there was only 2 columns. Aita, girl or boy, nothing else. That's why I asked you, though it is very much present in our history, in our own Indian history, whom we called as Kinnaras and Kimpurushas, okay, we did not give any kind of representation at all for them. They have to be recognized, no. They are also human beings. Recently, in the election commission has given an opportunity for them. They can go, even in front of their name, either they will be Purusha or Stree. Are you a woman or a man? Okay, when they were going for voting, I think all of you have the right to vote. No, now you are all more than all of you. Yeah. You just ask your grandfather, grandmother. You ask your grandfather, grandmother. You ask your father and mother. When they were going for voting, there was no third gender at all, no transgender. Are you a man or a woman? Then you understand that it has to be treated as gender. I understand it. But now it has become a problem in the society. Their representation is not there in the society. They have to be given representation. The identity is not there. Do you understand? Okay. I forgot your second question. First question I answered now. What is your second question?
Ma'am, my second question is, why has someone's sexual orientation has to be inclusive in politics?
In politics? Yeah, if you don't give them a voice to talk about their community. What I mean by their community, people who are like them. They otherwise they don't have any representation. They will be there standing in the corners of your signal asking for money. Except that they do not do anything. Why it is happening like this? Because they do not have any political representation. If they have an organization, if they work through their organization, claim for their rights, are you understanding? I and you are by God's grace are having our own identity. They don't have an identity, children. Do you understand their problem? They don't have an identity. Therefore, they have to get their identity. How can you get your identity? When you go lobby, become a political personality. Go and represent yourself either as an MLA or an MP and give your problem And the people who are there in the Sabha, in the Vidhana Sabha, in the parliament should understand your problem, should bring some rules. Only then it can be changed. Therefore, they want political representation. Understood? I was called, by the government of Karnataka to talk about their problem. It is just not possible to understand their problem because so much dense is their problem. So much, and we are having a very happy life. Society has accepted our relationship. Their relationship is not accepted by the society. Society thinks that it is a sin of no problem or no mistake done by them. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a social concern and we need to think about that problem. Are you understanding me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.